Welcome into the Commanders Report. I'm your host, Jack Sperry. At the top of today's show, I'll break down which Commanders player surprisingly retired here today. Then we'll get into Dan Quinn's defense and how he's trying to bring back the Legion of Boom scheme here to Washington. And we'll finish up today's show with my latest takeaways from Commanders training camp practice here on Tuesday. But before we get into the content today, guys, make sure you click that subscribe button to help us catch up to the other NFC East channels here at Chat Sports for the month of July. We are currently in 4th place in the July sub battle, and even if we don't catch up all the way to the first place channel here in the Cowboys Report, who are currently at 622 new subscribers, I would absolutely love to not be last place here during the month of July. So if you guys could click that subscribe button, I'd greatly appreciate it. We have daily and free premium Commanders content breaking down the latest news and rumors surrounding the Washington Commanders. And new viewers, we are really counting on you guys. All the real ones that are watching this already subscribed can't help us out here. It's only the new viewers that haven't subscribed to the channel that can help get us over the top. All right, so let's start here with the news of the day here, where guard Nate Herbig has decided to retire. Now, Herbig spent the last 2 years with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Last year, his season was ended in training camp with a torn rotator cuff. And, I don't know if Herbig just felt like the shoulder wasn't feeling good, or, he felt like he took a step back with his athleticism after a year off last year. He just couldn't really live up to the NFL standards anymore. I don't exactly know why Herbig has decided to retire, but, we wish him the best in his future endeavors. And, of course, that means one less person in the offensive line room for the Washington Commanders. We'll see if the Commanders make any moves and additions to this group in the days to come. But now I want to shift my focus here to head coach Dan Quinn and defensive coordinator Whitt Jr., who definitely have a vision for the 2025 Commanders defense. And we kind of saw this vision kind of play itself out a little bit last year. I didn't think they had the right personnel to really, execute this vision to its potential. But this year, I think that they feel really good about the roster that they have assembled. So without further ado here, let's start with the foundation of this defense, which is the 4-3 under front, okay? And this is what Dan Quinn has been using all the way back in his Seattle Seahawks days when he was a defensive coordinator with the Legion of Boom. And it consists of 5 on-ball players, all right? So 4 defensive linemen and a linebacker playing on the ball with 2 off-ball linebackers. The true defensive end there on the end is the Leo. The 3 tech, that is your pass rushing specialist, is at the 3 tech. Your 1 tech is going to be more of your run defender, takes on double teams, that sort of thing. The 5 tech is a defensive end. And then the Sam linebacker is pretty much an edge rusher that's technically a linebacker. He's kind of a smaller, speedier edge rusher there on the edge, with then 2 linebackers in your base formations, and then, of course, a free safety and a strong safety. But Dan Quinn's wrinkle that he has kind of thrown in here over the last several years in his time there with the Dallas Cowboys and now with the Washington Commanders is that he utilizes what he calls a bandit safety to replace the will linebacker. You guys can see that weak side linebacker there in the box in his nickel formations, all right? So let's take a look at which players play where in this scheme for the Washington Commanders, at least based on where they've been aligning at the start of Commanders training camp to this point. The starting Leo is Dorrance Armstrong because he's got that really big frame. He's like a true defensive end, a really good run defender. Then you got Jerzon Newton as your 3 tech, your penetrating type of interior defensive lineman. Then Daron Payne is your 1 technique. They're hoping that he can be kind of like a Dexter Lawrence type of player at that 1 technique spot where he can still get after quarterbacks as this team's nose tackle, but also be strong enough and big enough to be able to take on double teams against the run. Then Javon Kinlaw is going to be playing the 5 tech. He cut some weight during the offseason here, and they're really hoping that his athleticism and his heavy hands and his get off are going to be really good in that kind of 3-4 defensive end type of alignment. And then Frankie Louvu is actually lining up at edge rusher. He's working with the edge rushers in individual drills because this defense essentially uses him as an edge rusher, and he really is the linchpin of the defense because that Sam linebacker is such an important piece of this 4-3 under scheme where, Louvu can either go out in coverage, which he's still pretty good at, but he's also excellent at rushing the passer. We saw that last year in this Commanders defense where he had 8 sacks, 12 TFLs, spells, a forced fumble and 2 fumble recoveries, and of course almost 100 tackles as well. He's one of the best linebackers in the National Football League, period, and that's why they really made it a priority in Dan Quinn's first offseason here with this team. And, Adam Peters asked, what do you need to run this scheme? He said, I need a damn good Sam linebacker, and Frankie Luvu is one of the best, if not the best, at this specific role in the National Football League today, which means on the second level there, you got Bobby Wagner as your true Mike, especially on early downs, and then you're going to see a little bit of a rotation at that will linebacker spot. Jordan McGee will probably be your early down type of guy, good pass coverage player, really good athlete, a run and hit style of will linebacker when you're in your base formations. And then we'll see Tyler Owens out there as a dime backer, as a quote-unquote bandit safety. At times we have seen him have a really good camp to this point, and he seems to be that kind of freaky, athletic, big, but also really fast player that's kind of that hybrid linebacker safety in this scheme. And then in the secondary there, you got Marshawn Lattimore. He's going to be playing that true kind of quote-unquote Richard Sherman type of role in this defense, where he's going to be, your press guy on the outside against the other team's number 1 wide receiver. Trey Amos is going to be a really good number 2 guy out there. He's running with the number 1 defense right now. Mike Sainristil has been pretty much the star of camp to this point there in Ashburn. He's going to be a phenomenal slot corner for you. And then you got Quan Martin and Will Harris as your safeties. And then when you get into pass-heavy downs, second down and long, third down and medium, third down and long, where you're trying to get after opposing quarterbacks, what Dan Quinn will do, and this is something he started implementing in his time there with the Dallas Cowboys, is that he will go to what he refers to as a NASCAR package, where it's a specific type of defensive front. It's a 4-man front that's specifically designed to get after quarterbacks. So what we've seen from the NASCAR package, at least to this point in Commanders training camp, is you see Von Miller coming in these instances. All right, he's not necessarily brought here to be a full-time starter where he's playing that Leo position. That's Dorrance Armstrong's role. But in this NASCAR package, Von Miller is still one of the most efficient pass rushers in the National Football League, and he will come in this package. You also have Daron Payne, and Dorrance Armstrong has actually been playing that 3 technique spot in this NASCAR package. And then you got Frankie Luvu as a true edge at this point in camp. So he's going to be playing a lot of edge rusher this year, guys. He's going to be phenomenal. And then when they're in this NASCAR package, they're going to have a second level unit that looks like this. You'll have Tyler Owens out there as the bandit safety, and then Jordan McGee in there as the true middle linebacker. They will still have Bobby Wagner out there at times, depending on the situation, but McGee and Owens are probably the best in the second level unit at pass coverage, which is why I have them on the graphic, not Bobby Wagner. But then you get into the secondary here, and it's the same thing, right? It's the same thing. You got the same 5 players out there. The Commanders are really banking on these players to be able to hold up on the back end while they do a bunch of loops and stunts and simulated pressures and doing all these different things to confuse opposing quarterbacks. I'm really excited to see this defense in action, guys. Dan Quinn and Joe Whitt Jr., I think, have one of the best and most modern defensive schemes in the National Football League. Last year, the lack of cornerback talent, frankly, and depth at the outside cornerback position held this defense back significantly. I think this year they have made that area a strength, bringing in Jonathan Jones, bringing in Trey Amos, putting Mike Sainristil back in the slot. I think this defense has a chance to be a legitimate top 10 defense in the National Football League this year. And if you combine that with Jaden Daniels and what we know this offense can do, we might be talking about one of the best teams in the National Football League in 2025. So fill in the blank for me down there in the comments section. The Commanders will have a top blank defense in the NFL this year. This will be the pinned comment on today's show. In just a second here, I'm going to tell you about our sponsor today at Ethos. It's a new sponsor here on the Commanders Report. And while I'm talking about Ethos today, go down there in the comments section and let me know how good you think the Commanders defense will be this season. And with that, let's have a word from our new sponsor here on the Commanders Report, Ethos. And guys, the summer before I started here at Chat Sports, my family lost my late grandfather. And as you tend to do when you lose a loved one, you begin to think about your own mortality and what would happen to the people dependent on you if something were to happen. With today's sponsor, Ethos, your family is protected. I'm getting married soon, and shortly after that, I imagine I'm going to be buying a house, and kids will probably shortly come after that. If something were to happen to me, I want the last thing the people I love to worry about is being able to pay the bills, so I trust Ethos to keep them protected. Ethos is an online platform that makes getting life insurance fast and easy, So to protect your family's future in minutes, not months. There is no complicated process, and it's 100% online, and there's no medical exam required. You just ask a few health questions, get a quote in as little as 10 minutes. Protect the family with life insurance from Ethos today. Get your free quote at ethos.com/NFL Daily. That's ethos.com/NFL Daily to get your free quote today. A big shout out to Ethos for sponsoring today's edition of the Commanders Report. So let's finish up today's show here with my Tuesday practice notes from Commanders training camp. Of course, the pads were still on a Tuesday morning in Ashburn, and today was another good day for Deebo Samuel, and he just continues to keep stacking up good days. It seems like every single day we're hearing about an incredible diving catch, multiple touchdowns from Deebo, and with Terry McLaurin not out there, obviously Deebo's being featured a little bit more, but it definitely seems like at this point it is a daily occurrence to hear about Deebo Samuel having a crazy catch in the end zone, making a big play on like a deep crosser. We're getting multiple reports of that at this point, so I'm feeling very good about where Deebo Samuel is at this point in camp. Another wide receiver that's been impressive is Chris Moore, and Moore did drop one deep pass from Jaden Daniels today, but he had multiple really, really nice grabs. He's had a really good camp overall, and he had a really good offseason program as well. So I would assume that the Commanders are seeing what everyone else is seeing here, and he's definitely going to be a name to keep your eye on during the preseason, and he's probably going to be one of these roster bubble type of players that may make the final roster, maybe a practice squad guy, but it really wouldn't surprise me at all, guys, especially after a strong preseason. If he makes the final roster here, he has been impressive. Another guy that has been impressive so far in camp has been Jacory, Croskey-Merritt, and today he got his first action playing with the first team offense with the 2-minute drill unit today. Now, you would think that Austin Eckler, as this team's kind of pass-catching back, would have been out there. But today it was actually Jacory, Croskey-Merritt working with the first-team offense. And Merritt has been somebody that has been, probably the offensive kind of breakout star of camp to this point, where Dan Quinn was just absolutely gushing about his ability to make these cuts in space. He's looking like the real deal out there, guys. And I'm really excited to see what the 7th-round pick out of Arizona is going to be able to do during the preseason. Then we get to the defensive side of the ball, and I alluded to earlier in our defensive breakdown that Mike Sainristil had been pretty much the star of camp so far in Ashburn, and that is absolutely true. And the combination between Sainristil in the slot and then Quan Martin playing that free safety position looks like it's going to be a mainstay here in Washington for many, many years to come. And I think that we're lucky to have these two guys in this secondary. Martin really took a big step last year in year 2 coming out of Illinois, and of course getting himself out of that Ron Rivera doo-doo garbage baby scheme that they were running with Jack Del Rio. But then Mike Sainristil comes in, and he's looking like one of the best slot corners in the National Football League. Hopefully Amos and, of course, Marshawn Lattimore are going to be able to hold their own on the outside. But these two young players, guys, I think are going to be phenomenal players for this team for a long time. Then the final note here is Josh Conerly Jr. getting off to a slow start here? Is it time to get concerned about the first-round pick out of Oregon? Lionel Willingham, who is a radio host in Washington, had this to say about the rookie from the Oregon Ducks. The one young pup throughout the first 4 days of camp that has been underwhelming, how I would describe it, is Josh Conerly Jr. But one thing I've noticed since watching Josh Conerly in team drills, and it's honestly stunning to me, as it's the opposite of what he was billed as coming out of Oregon, he's got heavy feet. He's not moving tremendously well when it comes to one-on-one pass rush situations, and then watching him try to get out in space on screens. Do not ring the alarm yet, but I will say this. Throughout the first couple of practices, he's been a little underwhelming. So I will say this. Hearing that is a little bit concerning because Conerly is known as somebody that's fleet of foot, somebody that gets out there on screens. Is one of the reasons why the Commanders really like him is because obviously Cliff Kingsbury loves his early down wide receiver screens, and he loves to get those tackles out in space as blockers. So to hear that Conerly, has got kind of heavy feet and he's not necessarily moving as well as maybe he did at the University of Oregon is a little concerning, especially because he doesn't have the best, anchor. He kind of sacrifices some of that anchor strength for athleticism, and that was one of his biggest strengths coming out of Oregon. So if the reports are true that he's got heavy feet out there, that is something that concerns me at this point in time, guys. However, I'm not sounding the alarm yet. yet. I'm really excited to see what he looks like in the preseason. He should get a little bit of run there. And as camp goes on, he's going to continue to get more and more opportunities. And I still expect Conerly to win this starting right tackle job week 1. If he doesn't win that job week 1, I think we might have a slight problem on our hands in terms of his prospects for this season, because Andrew Wiley, as we've discussed at length on this channel for the last several years, is just, a below average replacement level offensive tackle option at this point in his NFL career. So you would really hope your first round pick and your rookie right tackle, who you drafted to play right away, is ready to do that week 1. If we see Andrew Wiley out there as this team's starting right tackle in week 1, I think we might have a slight issue on our hands with the rookie out of Oregon. So who's your guy? Let me know down there in the comments section. Who will be the best rookie for the Commanders this year? Will it be Josh Conerly? Will it be Trey Amos? Will it be Jalen Lane, who's had some nice catches in camp so far? Will it be Jacory Croskey-Merritt? Let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section. Which Commanders rookie is going to have the best rookie campaign? That'll be it for today's edition of Commanders News and Rumors, brought to you by Chat Sports. Make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already, because we got more Commanders content coming your way all throughout the week.